my friend. Today, let's write a melody together. Let's pick a key. As always, we're going to go up to the board, choose something like from our circle of fifths. If you don't know what that is, check out the channel. There's a lot of info on here, or you can Google circle of fifths. Tell you what, if this is your first time to the channel, I don't do any editing yet. Don't have time for it. It's just stream of conscious. It's a lot of music facts. Sometimes it's too much. If you need me to slow down, ask me to slow down. I'm going to try and talk a little slower today. Circle O fifths. Let's go over here. I'm going to write it on out. Got a circle. Self-explanatory. The key in music that has no sharps and flats is called C. When we say C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, in the Western ear, we would equate the 1 being the C, 2 being D, so on and so forth. If you've never seen these type of stacked notes, these are called Roman numerals. History. Written symbology or cryptic became cuneiform or cuneiform, which became somewhat like Sumerian numbers, which became Greek, which became an amalgamation of Greek and Roman. And this is what we're kind of left with. There are other numbers in here like V or A or M, C. Long story short is these numerical systems deal with the Western ear and 7 notes. Those 7 notes are super, 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 super important to knowing music. So when we know key signatures like the one we're going to do today, let's say we're going to play in the key of A major, we would know that in the key of C major from the beginning that any time that we've got a single note and we have a single note in a key like C major or C Ionian, that there are no sharps and no flats, meaning when we play a C or an A, all of the notes that we choose for A minor and all the notes that we choose for C major, like C and E, are D and F, are E and G, these are all notes that go up in something called diatonic or tertiary harmony. All of music is based off the concept of notes stacking upon themselves. So when you see a one note, I guess we don't need to see that per se to know what we're talking about. Yeah, there we go. If we see a C, D, E, F, G, A, and B, we're going to start seeing things as this. So I do a lot of this on this channel. It's talking about a triad. The aforementioned dyad, the first 2 notes of that harmony in the key of, let's say, A, we would have an A and a C sharp. So the reason why we know A has 3 sharps, the F sharp from the key of G, the C from the key of D, and then the G from the key of A, is because we base this off of knowing every single key signature resolves its kind of being by knowing what the key before it was and how many sharps it had, and knowing what the key after it has. Now, you don't have to learn all of music in one day. The whole idea is that you do this in little tiny tidbits. So even though I have written here the key of C major, we can absolutely be talking about the key of A if we just visualize this as being the 1. Now, in this particular theme, our A being A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, and G sharp, that arises out of knowing that a C major has no sharps and no flats, that when we go to the key of G, there's 1 sharp, that sharp's F sharp, the key of D has 2, and then A has 3 sharps. If we continue on this whole adventure, we would find E has 4, B, F sharp, and C sharp. Now, I like to give little tidbits like this because sometimes music theory is a little weird and a little hard in the beginning. There are only 15 keys. I know that seems crazy. But if you could play all of your 12 notes from each key, meaning there are 7 notes here, but there are notes in between that. In the key of A, we would have A sharp, B. B would go to C. Well, C is in between B and C sharp because B sharp is C. So what happens is A sharp goes a half step. Well, we call this little bitty half step a microtone or a diatone or a half step or a semitone or a minor second. It does not matter what it's called. The feeling is that of dissonance. No matter where you play that, if you play that as being 2 notes that are directly next to each other, these are the only notes on the staff or the stave that are going to be having a single note like this note, the B note, and then have a note that is being played and touching it. Now, here's the interesting thing. Anytime you have a minor second, the note that you have will be played to the left and above. It's just how it is. So if you see a note like this, like a B, and it has that touch there, you're going to look at that and say, cool, I've got a B note, depending on my key signature, there isn't one, so we're in C. I've got a B right here, right? And then the note that we're playing, actually, if we go to middle C, right here, we would know that we're going up. C, D, E, F, G, A, B. And then B would have a diatone. It's playing the C right next to it. That minor second causes that dissonance. So the only other thing is all music is based off of if you do more than just that half step there, and you do another half step, you get a major second, then a minor third, major third, which leads us to the process of knowing what chords are. It's just calculations of little bitty increments in math. A half step or a minor second plus a half step or a minor second equals a major second. If you keep adding those, we just give them different names. Like, this is our tonic, but when we go to this next, our minor second, it's the note in between. Well, that's part of our chromatic scale. When you hit that 13th note, it is the same as that first, so we only really have 12 pitches. Out of that, all of music is basically stacked into thirds, and then thirds are what we use to make chords. So since we know that, and that is the basis of a foundation, we can play a chord called an A major 7, and we know that it has the 1, 3, and a 5. That's the points of our triangle. And then the major 7 is the one that occurs naturally. Minor 7th comes before it. So an A dominant 7 would use the G, because in the key of A, there is no G natural. There are 3 sharps, the last of which, the major 7th, can be flattened to a minor 7th, giving you a flat 7. The 6th can be flattened to a flat 6, or the minor 6, as this is the major 6. When we keep going, we go to the 5th, we could have a flat 5, or an augmented 4th. Notes go both ways. They could either be flattened, which we would call a diminished, and when we do this, you'll see this in being the chord construction of some of our tertiary chords, like our 1, 3, 5 in the key of A has an A, a C sharp, and an E. Well, the major third plus a minor third equals a major chord. If we flatten that mediant and bring it down a half step to the C natural, the A to C gives us a minor third. Well, then that changes the distance between these two notes. C to E as a major third. So the chord construction of an A minor relies on us knowing that it is not a major third and a minor third. It is yet, in fact, a minor third and then flippity floppity floop, major third. That happens with everything. So with the diminished, we flatten that third. And you can see how flattening a note or diminishing it gives us a chord that just builds a little bit more tension. So when we do this, we call these chords diminished chords, which is represented by a circle. If we have another note in there, we can even put a 7th. You could do this, and it gives it a little bit different tone. Like every chord, when it's major, can be turned into a diminished. Well, if you've got chords which naturally use that dominant 7th, if we flatten it again, we get a chord that builds even more tension and distance. So that is the basic chord construction and theory behind the keys and why we use different notes. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take the key of A major, show you that the chords right next to it, the D and the E, are the majors in the key. And when we play the chords that keep going like this way, B, F sharp, and C, these are going to be our 3 minors. And then on the other side of the C sharp, if we kept going, C sharp, D sharp, E sharp, F sharp, G sharp, we would get our diminished. Now, on the circle flats, it's not called a G sharp. It's enharmonically called an A flat, which means once you realize that these notes are the same, this G sharp is an A flat as well as a G sharp. You begin to see how all these different names and chord constructions can be named a multitude of different things in the long run. So what we like to do is just take this concept and then jump over to the board, write up some staves, and write a quick little melody, put some chords underneath it, and show the process of writing simple melodies is exactly where you need to start off if you are a beginner songwriter. So let's have fun with it. I got something. I got a bunch of songs stuck in my head. I hope it doesn't deprive us of the ability to just write something fun and cute. All right. I know, all of my pens are smashed in. Oh, that one's nice and thick. All right, what I like to do is just do 3 big lines and then go back and write the middle line. I don't know if anybody has a better way of doing these, please put it in the comment section. I was thinking about building a little contraption like back in the day where you put chalk in it and it just had 5 markers. Or maybe getting some lines and putting them permanently on here, or something magnetic that can move. I'm going to connect these two because we're going to be playing these as a bass clef and then a treble clef. We are in the key of A, which means we're going to have our F, our C, and our G. Again, F, C, and G. And then I think our time signature, let's just try to keep it simple in 4/4. Now, some people have asked me why I don't continue on my time signatures in my staves. I always want to keep the same thing going right here, but you don't have to keep repeating the time signature unless it changes. If you do, you want to represent that with a double bar in the middle of your clef wherever you change. All right, A, B, C sharp, D, E, F sharp, and G sharp. And it goes without saying, we could be writing in the key of F sharp minor, and the way that you would know that by looking at a piece of music, one, the overall theme or motif of it has a minor feel. Somewhat, sometimes people like associate triads or chords with feelings like moods. An A major feels a lot happier than an A minor, you could say, or an F sharp major has a happier feeling than a minor, but in some music you could use those and blend the lines, so it's not always the best representation to talk about modality. However, when we do this, I like to say that whenever you see something other than just a sharp or a flat in here, if you see a lot of sharps and flats in a key and they're also naturals, some sort of change where you would have a note which is like, let's say you've got a note that's this and you sharpen it. If you wanted to flatten that, you would just bring that back to a natural note after it's sharpened in a key. So if we had a G sharp, but I did not want to use the G sharp, I wanted to use the minor 7th, I would represent that G as a G natural, and I would utilize this accidental. All right, so I probably want to do one more line here because generally in music you've got 8 measures, 4 of them are saying something, and then the next 4 measures are the response to that. It's kind of like a conversation in music. Now, again, these aren't, they're kind of written in stone, but these aren't the only way to write music. This is just one way. It's about picking some notes outside of the 7 notes and tones you have, and then utilizing those in a form and a fashion where you start to understand, recognize patterns and recognition of notes on the stave. And what happens over a period of time, and when you play the same thing over and over again, you get kind of static, which is also a term in music, which we'll talk about. So here, let's put another one. We're going to take another staff, put a line right here, do right here. I hate those. Oh, that's not a grad staff at all. And as I said, I'm not going to keep putting on the time signature because we know what it is, but I do want to put my sharps here so I know each line that we're working, utilizing. We're going to end the line here, and because I know this is the end of our piece, we're going to put a double bar right there. Now, this is a basic setup. It ain't too straight, but hey, we're here for the notes, aren't we? Let's go over to the piano and take a gander at the key of A. On the key of A, we've got a 1 chord, a major chord, consisting of a 1, 3, 5, A major, A, C sharp, and E. We then have a B, D, and then an F sharp, according to the key signature. We're going to move that over to get a C sharp major. I'm sorry, C sharp minor. We have a C sharp, an E, and then a G sharp. Our next chord we're going to be playing is the D major. It's our major 4th, consisting of a 1, 3, 5. We then move up the scale to get our next chord, our E major. F sharp minor is our relative minor. It has all the same charismatic keys that the A does, except for when we use use that F sharp minor, we then can manipulate that beautiful chord to represent the F sharp harmonic minor or the F sharp melodic minor. We can even go as far as to get modal on that if we're going to put it inside of a key. And a lot of the time when you use the F or the seventh of the key, you're using the flat 7, which is a common theme in music, which we might even do today. As far as that goes, we're going to try and stay within our A major, our B minor, C sharp minor, D major, E major, F sharp minor, and then our diminished is going to take our major, you know, flatten the 3 and flatten the 5, just like we talked about. And that gives us our lending or leading chord or tone, and it resolves back to the 1. So, having discussed a couple of those notes in there, what I generally like to do is just pick out some notes. So, generally, you will have a chord that's a 1 chord begin a piece. That's not always the case. If you've got a pickup note or an anacruxis, you probably would be writing a bar and then a note going into a phrase, so that wouldn't be considered a measure. And because I want to have some equal temperament here, we're just going to start with this having 4 measures. The first note of which I think we're going to just throw down something that's in the key, so why don't we put a prime? Here's our A, you betcha. Don't know what I want that to feel like yet, so I'm just going to put that A note, and then we're going to put another note right after it. What are we feeling here? There's another note from this scale. We could do moving in step often works well. So maybe we can move up to a B. And then maybe we can move up to a C. Now already we've got 3 notes, and all 3 of those are written as whole notes, which means no bueno. It wouldn't fit inside the measure. What I do want to do is fill this in because I don't know whether I want it to be a half note here or here. I think we're going to be doing an 8th note here as a pickup. Not really a true anacruxis, but I'm going to throw up my stave and then put my beam, showing that this is 8th note, fill in the note head. That has the first feeling of 1 and. 2 could be a quarter, and because it's above the B line, the middle line, we're going to put our stem on the other side and then point it down. That gives us our feeling of 1 and 2. We can hold this out for maybe a dotted quarter note, so it's a 2 and then we can put a rest here. That gives us the feeling of having our 1 and 2 and then when we go here, this is going to be our filler, so 1 and 2, or we can just play this straight through and go to a quarter note. Maybe a descending or ascending line. Let's see how we feel. 1 and maybe that would be fun. 1 and then we have ha. So, since these are both above, I'm going to put this in, put my line down, put my beam to show that it's an 8th note. We're going down in nature, and all of these are going to be kind of beamed together, so maybe I want to put this down and pull this note over, and then pull this note down. Since this B line has the option of going up or down like you see here, but we're going to be playing all of these, it's not the best lean, but yeah, there's my beam. So each one of these is going to have the feeling of 1 and 2 and 3 and then we have a single quarter note, or we could do a rest. I think a good feeling of finality would be great for this. Maybe a harmony. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Maybe throw it to an A and a C sharp. When we do this, our 2 notes act as 1. We have a harmony here, and they're both going to be half notes. Or actually, they're quarter notes, aren't they? This ends our measure. Since we're doing the same thing down here, we're going to have a chord underneath it. This is going to be the feeling of our first level. I should have written smaller, shouldn't I? We might be doing a smaller little level here. And then our next notes, after we find this, where do we want to go? It's an adventure. That ends our first measure. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 that has the harmony. We could then go down to something like our diminished if we wanted to, or we could go up to our B minor, or we can play that B minor as an extended chord. If I throw on the chord A, we can see how we've got if we went down to this minor third and stacked the minor third, we get an A flat diminished, or in this case, naming it enharmonically G sharp diminished. By adding on what looks as if it's going to be a B minor, you could turn this diminished into a seventh, which would be fun because it has a flat 5. You can make it into a true diminished or keep it as a flat 5. It's a little full for this idea. And then maybe we can play something like an E major. A little too happy. The D, functionally, is a little too happy as well. Maybe we do like that G sharp, or that, yeah, the G sharp diminished. Is that a fun movement? 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Remember that holds the whole beat. And then we can have something like going up in harmony. What was that? We had A and C. So how about like a G sharp and a B? I'm gonna throw it all the way here, right? All the way to the which line? Right up top or lower? Depends on where you want to go. I don't really want to jump, and I don't really want to move these two notes in parallel motion, but that's kind of the central theme, isn't it? So maybe we could go up here and just throw it on the G, and then throw in our A. If we did our G sharp here, and we did our A, it would clash. So how about a B? G sharp and a B. There we go. Gonna have these two going on out. Hold them out. I like the idea of going down. So we've got B and a D. It's looking pretty snazzy, right? If you have any questions about what we're doing here, and if you are writing stuff on your own or you're trying to see how notes work together with themselves, maybe you can check us out on Tuesdays. We talk about music theory, how to look at music from a different perspective, add vocabulary, and then get to a point where we're understanding how to pick up motifs or themes, and then not get confused with key signatures and being able to name notes correctly. Part of this series talks about chord construction and how to understand the circle fifths. If you dig it, show up on Tuesday. Ask questions. So, and then we have our harmony. 1, 2, 3, 4. How about the same theme instead of backwards? Instead of doing it, start it with the harmony. So we just had, and then we can have our, maybe an upward motion or downward motion. No changing of modality or changing of tonicity. Don't want to change that immediate right away. So 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2. Yeah, I like that. Just going up very simple. E, D, C sharp, ha, ha. E, D, C sharp. Since these are above the B, we're going to throw them down here. And we're going to be holding this out for 3 beats. 1 and 2. I don't know if I like the note going up. I guess it doesn't matter. We're going to do it for a dotted half note, which means it has 3 beats. That fulfills our measure. 1 and 2, 3, 3 and a half. And then we're going to go into our last measure. Should we have a harmony? Perfect force, maybe? But then we'd be moving in the same direction is kind of a faux pas in the beginning of creating melodies. When you have two notes and they shift and move together rather than moving in opposite directions, things kind of feel kind of blocky, kind of chunk and paste kind of idea. So one of the ways to get rid of that, instead of having notes like this that move parallel, these notes should separate. Now, a way of doing that would have been to step up. If I was part writing for soprano, alto, tenor, and bass, or at least 3-part, if I was part writing for 3-part or 4-part, it would change the way that I would view the notes, but the chords themselves would remain somewhat the same. I would just pick a different avenue or a street. But music's music, it's perceptive. Let's see where these notes end up. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4. And that appeared to me, I actually wrote the wrong note here. I wrote it on a B, but let's see what that sounds like. I don't mind that. I don't know, maybe it should move through there. Far down, but you can still read it. And then maybe just 1 and 2 and. Maybe something fun in the bass area, but I would say just maybe a rest. Rest. So we're going to throw in a rest here. And then end the measure. And that last note would have been held over, so what I want to do is make sure that we're consistent. Maybe make these staccato. Bum, 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 bum. Let's end it on a 6th chord. Cool. F sharp. A. C sharp. You want to do it just as a stacked triad? Sure. Boom, boom. Holding out for the whole thing. Now, what we can do is do a quick little analyzation, throw some dynamics in here. Mezzo piano, so we know kind of the feeling of it. Let's give it a little crescendo. Make sure it gets a little louder from the beginning to the end of our marking. Since this thing is a full phrase or an idea, we're going to take this one phrase, which is 4 bars, and see it as being a part of a period. Meaning, all these should have equal. This is our blah, 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 and down at the bottom we have our blah, 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 blah. Now, not all music is this way, but a lot of common themes happen this way. It's a great way to get temperament and to see where the chords go. Really quick, when we're trying to do this, let's also pattern out what our bass might sound like. If we went over to the piano, we would feel our... So I want to avoid that harmony unless we're going to give it that, the whole thing, maybe in a inversion. Throw the E down the bass, fundamentally changes the chord. Should it be pulsing? I think maybe just a little pulse. Down to the E on the bottom end. E to A. That sounds fun too. So we could have our bass clef. We're going to do our A, E, A. So our lowest note here, we have our F, G, A, G, A. Cool. We're going to make our chord here. Just do our harmony. We're going to do a 1 and a 3. right? 1, 2, and then go down 1 and 2, and so right here on our third beat, we're going to want to be putting in our next harmony. What's our next harmony? Well, we've got our lowest note, skip the F, and then play our lowest note, the E. E, G sharp, and then you've got your same phrasing. We're going to be going back up here, so let's see if it correlates to go from the E, from the A to the E, and then in. Now, if it feels weird to do this, you've got an A up top, you've got an A down below, and an E. So right now, you've got a 1 and a 3. Another great way to make this a little bit more balanced is to add a triad here with that top note of the, the E, C sharp, and then A, C sharp, and then the E. Or I would go back and change my melody note so it wouldn't be starting with the A, it would be starting with the E. So we would have somewhere functionally down here having these notes of, I need to put VA. Yeah, whatever. So here we go with the beginning of there. If I had this. And then here. Our harmony kind of does it as the last one. And then our next harmony goes down to here for our diminished. Maybe our diminished should just stay on the E. Dun, 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 dun. C sharp works fine there. C sharp here with our diminished. Maybe our C sharp should go to a D. Yeah, I like that. So we would move this up, we would find our G going to a C sharp. We did have this. Dun, 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 dun. And then we could have our C sharp below it. So if we kept going down below here, we would have C, D, E. Well, the harmony that we're producing has that E. So we've got a C sharp and an E. Cool, that gives us our diminished. Also, if you're feeling a little bit uneasy about what these notes and chords are while you're doing this, you could absolutely put the form up right here, which gives you the ability to see what chord you're in. Right here, we've got our 1 chord, right? So maybe if we wanted to write that in, we'd have our 1 chord. Let's put a little closer to home. 1 chord. And then when we move here, we're having our E, right? And then we've got our G. So when we look in here, our E and our G sharp is our 5 chord. And when we go to our next chord, we're having our C sharp diminish over the top of a G and a B. Well, does that work? C sharp, G and a B. That would be just charismatically of a C sharp diminish or a minor 7 flat 5. And you could write this as being right here. C sharp diminish or a flat 5. I mean, could you also name it as anything else? If you took your C off the bass, we'd be naming it as a G7 or an E6, minor 6 with a G. Ooh, I love that one, the 6 chord there. But yeah, feeling it as like the, we're changing our chord here, by the way. We're having a 3 chord as a diminished flat 5. And you can write it in that way, no worries. It looks like a minor 3, of course, because that was minor 3rd anyways. That declares we have a flat 5 anyways, or no? It's a 7 chord, so you're probably going to want to put that in there. 7 flat 5, boom. And then when we go here, there's no reason to change that unless we want to. The chord structure itself is going to be moving up in tone, so when we have something along the lines of... back to our harmony here. Da, da, da. I like how it bleeds through. Da, da. And yeah, we could go to a D there. Our D is our 4 chord. Feels pretty good. We're going to put that right. Yeah. And then as far as like writing it in, we're going to fill in that chord right next to it. So we're going to put both of those lines. I mean, you don't have to. You can put one and put the D there and then put its harmony because we are moving it. Now, I despise this melody already because most of this is moving in step. If I was going to have this, there would be some sort of alternating melody going along with this so it didn't feel so boxy. Otherwise, not bad. Here we go. We're going to make it into our third measure. What feels good to go over the top of our our walk down? What was it? Coming from our, or we could have it here. And then here's our walk down. From the D, if we move back, we're moving in step. We can walk down our C sharp, B, A if we want. C. Maybe like a sus at the end. Maybe just a B or. B minor to E major to A sus. Nah, a little too fruity. All right. Not in the sense of what you think. Fruity and there's too much flavor here. Let's see. I don't mind going through here and throwing this out here being the 1, 5, 3, 7 flat to a 4 chord. Let's do a 2 chord. And then we're going to be doing the 3 chord. No, the 5 chord again. And then ending on the 1. But we said we're going to end on the 6. How about we make this a 1-6 chord, or we make it a 6-7? So when we do this, we make it into a 7th here. If I throw an inversion here, the way we would write this is 7-2, or I could do 7-3 in inversion. I like the way the folks in Europe do it. They put A, B, and C. It's much easier to remember what those inversions are, generally. So like if you did like a C major, C, E, and a G, you would just call it the 1 chord, the Roman. It itself 5-4. When you have something like this 6, you're showing that you now have an inversion. And then if you have other characteristics, you would be putting the lowest note as your 5th of the chord on the lowest. Over in Europe, they just utilize this by putting an A, B, or C. And I find this much more gratifying to see a 1C than I do about seeing numbers. A lot of numbers in math here. All right, and then our last chord is going to be our 7 here. So got to decide if I have my F sharp, A sharp, and C sharp. F sharp, A, C sharp, and then my next note to have that 7 would be a major 7 would be the E sharp, and we don't have that because we're not viewing it through the keys of F sharp. We're viewing it through the key of knowing that E is going to be our flat 7, our minor 7, which is great. So I'm just going to throw that up in there, and I'm going to add that into there when we finish our full chord. Cool. And then what we probably like to do here is after that harmony of having these 2 notes of the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 1, 2. We've got our 2. I love that chord actually. Beautiful. And then up to the D. Or do we do it as a minor? No, we just did it as a major and used the 5. It would feel more like a B minor, just in a different inversion. So that's what we're gonna call it. Now that we're doing it, I feel a little stagnant because now we've got a 2 back to back. So if we're doing the A to the E, and then we're throwing in our C, our diminished there, and we thought we were going to our D, but at the point where we're looking at it, we're throwing a D right out here. look at it through the eyes of this, we're just throwing in a type of inversion. I would still call this a 4. Maybe we can play a major 6. Then again, I don't really want to put a lot of extension chords in here. Let's keep it as that 4. Going to the 2, we'll just split those. That's questionable. And then our B minor here, we could go up here, take away our lowest notes. If we did, we'd have our B above. We're not going above. We're not going below. We're going above. So G, A, B. And then when we throw in our harmonies, just seeing that we can do our same pairing. And then because we want to split here, are we going to keep it for the whole line? Or are we going to move it up to the E? Well, I think we should move from the 2 harmonies here being... And then part of our series of having this chord, what do we decide? Our down to our 6 chord, the F sharp minor. 3 chord, but as diminished into our major. But we're going to have it with a harmony as a 6. Into the minor. And then we're going to have our 4 chord. Or no, our 5 chord again. And then to our 6th. So the end of this phrasing is something called a deceptive cadence, which means that by the time you get all the way to the end of your chord here, at the end of the idea, it's not resolving. It doesn't give the listener the feeling of resolution. And then lastly, I would probably just put a low note down here. Dun, dun, dun. So an F sharp, we got our G, so right below, and then right below. We're going to put these right here. And because each one of these are going to be our halfies, now it's probably about time to put them in. So we've decided very much that these are going to go through. I think these are just going to be whole notes, and they're going to probably bleed over. Nice. To our F sharp. There is the end of our bar. And tell you what, I got a student come up here. I don't think I'm going to have enough time to get to the end of this. And here's the idea. If you're watching this at home and you like what you're seeing, maybe join us on Tuesdays. I would say this will be one of those submittals. If you take this and you send it to the email of booking Wago Hana Hou, you take the time to fill out this next one and then write not the antecedent, but the antecedent, and then find something that completes this concept. Send it to that email at bookingwagohanahou@gmail.com. I'll give you a free online lesson. We can do a 30-minute lesson on whatever instrument you choose and or theory. So, hope you had fun today. In synopsis, if we're going to be doing this whole thing, what I would also have done is maybe have written 2 different lines so I didn't have to keep correcting or going back. The reason why I started using programs like Dorco or Finale is because you have the option to duplicate those without having to handwrite it. And you could go back and change and alter notes like we were talking here. If I didn't want to see this as the 1, just having a 1 and a 3, which feels kind of odd to me, I would put maybe the G sharp up top, or not the G sharp, the A, C sharp, the E up top, and then utilize this E and going down in melody instead of doing something like maybe start with, right? It starts at a I think that sounds fine too, and then that would correlate having a full nice chord on that first laying down of doing this. And I like that harmony again. And then moving on back, if we were to play our next chord. Oh, don't like that F. For the B minor there? Yeah, no way. most likely here, because it feels kind of just so silly, boring in the bass line, have a walking bass. Bum, ba-dum, I want to go back into the F sharp, so my lending tone. Nah, that's too weird. I mean, that is in the key. I guess it really just depends on what you're feeling. So, the reason why I do stuff like this is I will write a common couple note theme. I will sit down on my instrument of choice. I will noodle around on the chords that I came up with, and I will decide whether or not this feels good inside of something called the major or the minor harmonic progression. By doing this, I can see that the chords that I use as the 3 chord feels good going to the 6 chord. That 6 chord is going to feel good going to the 2 or the 4. That's going to feel good going to the 5 or the 7. And that's going to feel absolutely wonderful going back to the root or the tonic, the 1 chord. There are a couple different things that you can do to get around having to do the same boring things over and over again. However, the whole purpose of doing this is to do a little analyzation on what we did and say, oh, does the 1 chord go to the 5 chord sufficiently enough? Yeah, I mean, you could take the 1 and go back to any of those. Does the 3 chord after the 5 chord flow? Yeah, it kind of starts the progression going again. And then the 4 after the 3. Yeah, if you just skip the 6 and go over and go to the 4, it feels pretty good. The 2 feels like you're just sharing that time and space with the 4 chord. Therefore, would I want to continue to have that? No, we came up with the realization here that this kind of feels stupid because they're one and the same. It's redundant. And then this feels a little bit weird as well. Not stupid, but just run-of-the-mill, lame, kind of the same. Here we really didn't explain static, which was a term that I used earlier. Static means to just put notes in the same form. Unfortunately, when you're doing part writing, the altos generally tend to get like the static notes, where the tenors or the basses and the sopranos are moving. One of them generally has the melody, or they switch. And then the alto note, God bless their souls, they keep on doing like a C or an A or an E note. They're just like da 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 da. It's just kind of boring, but without that filler, it just wouldn't fill out the rest of the chorus. So that's something that always I'm aware of when doing like part writing, melody writing. But the reason why I do this is after doing this for 40, 50, 80, 100 different themes or concepts in a key, can you modulate this to another key? Does it sound better? Does it feel better for the fingers? Is it easier to play on your instrument of choice, piano or a guitar, mandolin, banjo, or singing-wise? Is your register not if you were to choose any other note and do a harmony with that, could you harmonize? So if I were writing a third above and I had this here, could I have would that jump? Can you hear those by going? Because it sounds a little full to be going. Right? So all of this just analysis over something you write yourself, in my opinion, is a grander way to delve into music understanding and then have some sort of correction on it in real time. Because when you see or realize that you wrote like a note above the B line, or if the bass clef above the D line and your stem's going the wrong way, can you change them? Would it make more sense to take these notes, which are exactly the same, and put the stem going up? And did you want to have these doing the same? Does it make your eyes flow? Does it feel any better? Is there a rhyme or reason to it? Yeah, in certain ways of writing, but in the beginning, when you're trying just to feel out the beginning and use very, very small metrics on what your dynamics are, if you wanted to play this lightly, can I spell lightly? Lightly or moderately andante, you could put any type of marking you want up here. At this point, you have something tangible that's inside your music resource that you could go back upon and expand upon. Once you do this for 1, 2, 5 keys, eventually, you don't have to take the same thing and throw it in F sharp, but if you do, you will be more familiar with a key that has 6 sharps. If you use your circle fifths like we aforementioned up here, you get a little bit easier at knowing which chords flow to other ones and which ones don't. And remember, sight reading is extremely hard. The whole point of doing this is when you're seeing individual notes like we just aforementioned, you will start to see the stacking of those tertiary harmonies as if I was just talking about them. And then you will start seeing how chords are based off of notes that we see. All these can be considered like your ghost notes. You do not need to play them, or else the whole thing would be like, it would just be too many notes. It would be way too full. So the whole idea on any instrument is to perform at your level, don't overwhelm yourself, and then always ask questions. Hey, Jeffrey, how you doing? I'm just about to get out of here. Tell you what, today's kind of diatribe went on to talking about how to build a melody. Today we did it in the key of F, and I made a lot of mistakes, but then I tried to correct them. Some of the keen observations from this is it's not a great melody. This kind of feels like it's moving in blocks, and it really has no other sort of form. If I were to put these lines with like a fuller, I'm glad you're good, dude. Happy holidays to you. If you put a little bit of filler on here, you might find that like putting a string section behind a central melody will help fill out the space. And then what I've always considered is this, it's kind of from the Frank Zappa approach. Write as much as you possibly can. And the concept that happens out of this is when you have something that has a foundation or it has legs and can walk, or it stank, like the mothers would say, something like that, it's a standalone melody. If you have something that stands alone, take that central theme and work it into different kind of concepts that you have. Don't be afraid to take a motif or a little ha-na-na-na-na-na. Here, there really is no central theme repeating. It should have been something along the lines, ha 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 da na na da na 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 na, or something. Right here we stayed with our 8th note cluster, but really did not complete that anywhere else. You could have considered that. We could have beamed those together. However, it feels as if it was just a little bit too point and poke. However, music's music and it's perceptive. If you're watching this and you're in the beginning phases of writing as well, try and do this every day. The more you write out something on your staff, the easier it is to associate notes, and then we start memorizing things that we like and that we don't like. When you do some music analyzation, whether it's doing Debussy, Beethoven, Bach, or you're listening to 4 non-blondes, doesn't matter what you're listening to. Music analyzation comes down to a couple prime factors. 1, you know what key you're into, you know what rhythm there is, you know what every instrument and or voice parting is, as if you're looking at the mixing board and you can see the levels. And then you see, after you're done listening to it, how it made you feel. Did they stay within the 7 notes of the diatonic scale? Are there any passing notes or grace notes? Was it in a major or a minor key? Does the central theme or motif remind you of any other songs? Does it feel like it was copied and pasted verbatim, called a sample, which is what I'd consider stealing? Or is it an original concept or thought that wasn't heard by another ear? The more and more I analyze, the more I realize that a lot of music is perceptive and that a lot of central themes are used over and over and over again, and how we cut those up and utilize them in rhythms changes or alters the way that we feel. So even though cadences and motifs and progressions feel like it's the same thing over and over again, the true, in my opinion, my humble opinion, the true real crux of the biscuit is when you're able to see these things and then form your own music vocabulary and then your own phrasing on whatever your instrument is and then feel comfortable in the moment. So you're not really thinking about all the countless hours of writing notes or examining what modes are or how scales work or what the intervals are. But at a certain point, you don't think that while you're playing. You just allow what you have learned to come out in real time, which is somewhat zen. Anywho, I really enjoyed today. If you enjoyed melody writing, Check it out. Again, if you could take this central theme, write a little answer to it, put it down here, email it to me at bookingwagohanahou@gmail.com. Other than that, I hope you have a wonderful holiday and a great rest of your year. Aloha. Thanks for being here, Jeffrey. Be awesome. And if you have any suggestions for what you'd like to see on one of these Mondays or Tuesdays, just throw it up. I'd love to see it. Other than that, check out Michael Song's page. One of Michael Song's longtime viewers has gone to the next life. They perished. They had a fire, and there's a lot of heartache. It's still happening. It's very fresh. I've put in my community section links to different ways to help donate money. They lost the house. He lost his life and everything. So send a little love, send a little funds if you can, and please be mindful. Think of that if you can for the next day or so, and then put them in your thoughts. Send good vibes. All right. Check out the community post here, or go check out Michael Songs, who goes into a little bit more depth about the relationship. Other than that, aloha and thank you.